This is Matt from NoCodeTrainer.com. I hope you like this video and you can take what you learned from it and incorporate it into your own Bubble application. If you do, please make sure to click like and leave a comment in the comment section with how you'll use it inside of your application. If you'd like to be kept up to date with more tips and tricks you can use in your Bubble app, please subscribe to our channel and be sure to check out NoCodeTrainer.com for more exclusive content. In this video, we're going to show you how you can get the frosted glass effect onto an image element inside of your Bubble application, just like this image here on this preview. Going into your Bubble application, first thing that you're going to need to do to be able to get things set up is set up your app to be able to be making use of ID attributes and to be able to have access to class attributes that are recognized by CSS. To do that, go into your settings tab, go to general, scroll down to the sort of 25% area, general appearance, right around where you see the favicon, and then you can see this expose the option to add ID attribute to HTML elements. Check that box over there. Once you check that box, what you're going to end up having on every element on your page, including the page itself, at the bottom of it is going to be an ID attribute input where you can add the correct class. But before you can start adding the classes, you want to install the Classify plugin. It's a free plugin. Once you install it, you don't need to do anything else. All you're going to need to do is go onto the element in which you want to apply the custom CSS to that we'll be making use of for this frosted glass effect. And at the ID attribute, you're going to want to go ahead and add the class in this sort of a formatting. Now, I labeled this as glass. You can label it whatever you might want to. And when you do, make sure you remember what it is because you'll need to apply that same ID to your HTML. Once you have it set up on the page like that, then you're going to go onto your HTML element. You're going to draw that out onto the page, and you're going to add this custom code. Now, in this custom code, what we have, you can see the dot glass. Well, this is the ID attribute for our image element inside of Bubble. And what we're doing here is we're applying a background of white, and we're making the opacity of the image to 0.8. You can make changes to the opacity value and see how it changes the look and feel of things and try to style it just exactly as you want it to look inside of your own application. You can play around the background color. It kind of just overlays it. It seems like it overlays. It just sort of changes the color of the image. So maybe there's some effect that you might want to make use of changing the color there as well. Up above it, what we have is dot glass with 2 semicolons in the word before. Now, what this is doing here, it's creating what's called a pseudo element. So it's basically kind of creating a double of our original image element that we have added to our page. And it's sort of creating this double just with the CSS. So we don't need to add any other elements onto our page or anything. But you do want to make sure that your settings in here are the same, except you can make some changes to things. You could change the opacity and play around with that value and see how things look. But you'll definitely want to make change to what's called the background image. So the background image is all right here. Now, essentially, right in between the quote marks, this whole area, which is essentially the URL, this is what you'll want to be changing. And you can do this dynamically in Bubble, especially if you wanted to apply this to a repeating group worth of images. And when you are working with images inside of Bubble, you'll be able to access the URL value of that image. So as an example here, I'm just going to put this text element onto the page just to show you to access the dynamic expression. So insert dynamic data, and I'm just going to say do a search for, and I've got blog post, and on the blog post there is a data field of hero image, which is set to type image. So inside of your Bubble database, you can see here's blog post, I've got blog post. So your Bubble database won't look like this, but if you are creating your own custom data types and adding fields, you can add a field and make it of type image. So to create a field, you just add it whatever you want. And I'll just say this is the image uploaded. And now the field type, I'm going to choose image. Okay. And then once you do that and click create, then you'll have that field inside of your application and it's the type image. So you need a data field that is of type image. And then here as soon as I've selected that data field of hero image, right, I can click on more and say URL, and that will give me the URL of the image. So if I were to be wanting to set this up into a repeating group, I can very easily go into here. I can write in repeating group, and my type of content I could say is image, if that's what I'm doing. And then inside of the text, I'll just again show the dynamic expression. It'll be current sales images URL, right? So you can always access the URL value through a dynamic expression in different situations. So what you are doing in the HTML with this URL here, that is the same image that is actually inside of this image element. I just copied this URL from the dynamic portion there. And you need it to be the same image because it's creating another image on top of it, basically. And so you want to make sure that URL is pointing to the same image that you're expecting to create this frosted glass effect with. And that's all you need to do to get it set up inside of your application. If you wanted to do this in a repeating group, showing you very quickly, I have this repeating group set up to be of the type image, and inside of that repeating group, I put the HTML element. In the HTML, I actually just made a little bit of changes. After the .glass, I added a dash, and I referenced through the dynamic expression the current sales index. And I did the same thing down here with glass. And in the URL value, I referenced the current sales images URL through that dynamic expression. Inside of my image element itself that I placed into this repeating group, I added the class, but again, next to the class, I added a dash with the current sales index. So what this allows me to do is have this same code essentially within the repeating group being applied to each of the individual cells appropriately. And then when I go and I preview this, I actually have the frosted glass on all of the images that are inside of this repeating group. Okay, so you can very easily take this same application to put it into the use of the repeating group or as a single image or just multiple images scattered throughout your page. So hopefully this is helpful to you and you're going to find ways to make use of the frosted glass effect on an image element inside of your Bubble app. Thanks for watching the video. Hope that you found this helpful. If you'd like to be able to get editor access, please make sure that you check out the site, NoCodeTrainer.com. The link is in the description to the video, where you'll be able to gain access into the editor and be able to check out how things were set up within the application itself.